Your data is like gold to hackers, and they'll sell it to the highest bidder. Are you protected? McAfee helps shield you, blocking suspicious texts, malicious emails, and fraudulent websites. McAfee Secure VPN lets you browse safely, and its AI-powered text scam detector spots threats instantly. You'll also get up to $2 million of award-winning antivirus and identity theft protection, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back in the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, and be sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. I also want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and Bristol, PA, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive, hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. Well, the Eagles made a significant move on Monday morning after the combine was over, releasing cornerback Darius Slay, who has been with the team since the 2020 season. Slay made 3 Pro Bowls in his time with the team, and we're going to get more of that in a second. But first, let's bring in Bob Brookover and Cayden Steele. Guys, how are you doing today?
Hey, Chris. Happy Monday. Happy no more Darius Slay. I don't know how happy I've been about that. I really liked very much dealing with Darius Slay. Always an entertaining interview. And a very good player. Had a terrific 5 years. It doesn't look like it's going to continue, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. The strange thing happened last time when it looked like he was gone. So you never know, but it's the first big shoe to drop in this offseason for the Eagles, and here we go.
Kate, how you doing, man?
The first day of, where it feels like the free agency is getting closer. We're a week out now, and the Eagles move on from Darius Slay. And I'm curious to see what they do over the course of the next few weeks. Obviously, this is the first move, an expected move. Slay's talked about it, at the end of the year. I don't think this is a true surprise to anyone, but he had a huge impact in his 5 years, with the Eagles, one of the best quarterbacks in franchise history. Eagles are a Super Bowl champion, so I'm excited to break it down.
Nice. Yeah, we're going to start doing that right now. But just to give you guys some background info on his time with the Eagles in those 5 seasons, after the trade with the Lions to bring him here, played in 74 games, started 73 of them, which is crazy. He had 9 interceptions, two of which he returned for a touchdown. He returned a fumble for a touchdown. We all remember that game against Denver where the whole city country fumble glossary of whatever terms you want to use that first came about. So he did that as well too. And he also was a mentor to a couple of these guys as well. The Eagles are slated to have a post June 1st release date on him to help save some money. By doing that, they save $4.3 million against the cap, and they should have around 26-ish million, give or take, given that the new cap numbers came out last week. So, guys, I want to start with this. What are your initial thoughts about Slay's release?
Go ahead, Cayden.
Yeah, don't find it truly surprising because, like I mentioned already a little bit, at the end of the year, he was pretty open that he wants to play one last year. Even after they won the Super Bowl, he's talked about it on his podcasts. He mentioned that fact. It seemed like if the Eagles weren't going to bring him back at his current contract, and rightfully so. Either Darius Slay didn't want to take a pay cut, and he probably deserves a raise. With the way he's been playing, It doesn't surprise me at all that he's gone. For him, you probably could see the writing on the wall when they drafted Quentin Mitchell and Cooper DeJean last year. Having those guys in place, future-proofing that position, and then they go out this year, and Quentin Mitchell is one of the best young corners in football on the outside. Cooper DeJean becomes one of the best slot corners. Maybe they feel he could play on the outside. They have two corners in that room. Either way, they feel really good about going forward. So it's not really a position where they feel like if they lost Slay, they're going to be in significant trouble, and I don't think they probably will be. But Darius Slay is a good player, and it's not necessarily going to be easy. I think the secondary will take a hit because either way, you're going to have to find a guy on the outside to replace Slay, or if you move DeJean to the outside, and if that's what they decide to do, you're going to have to find a good nickel. Or someone that you could trust at nickel after what DeJean this year, how valuable DeJean was at that position this year. But I'm not surprised. In past years, Howie Roseman's talked about how him being sentimental towards certain players. And if you talk to guys in the locker room and coaches, Darius Slay is one of the favorites, teammates and players for, for the coaches. So, I mean, it's probably not an easy decision, but he's getting older. His contract was coming up with 1 year left. They had to make a decision. And Howie's talked about not being sentimental. And I know he's been really good, and he was still outstanding this year. The interception against Green Bay in the playoffs, just besides getting banged up here and there, leaving games, he was pretty durable. He was tough, and he's still really sticky in coverage. So he's not showed a ton of signs of slowing down, but who knows? Maybe it could hit him next year, and the Eagles don't want to guarantee him that money, possibly. And Howie can't be sentimental. As you see in the past where he's made decisions with older players who've gotten over 30, like Bradbury. With Reddick getting older last year, he decided to move on. So he's had to make some tough decisions. And I think this is just another one where he couldn't be sentimental and he had to make the best decision going forward for the Eagles.
What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a sad day for the Eagles because, I mean, this guy was here 5 years, went to 3 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl less than a month ago. Still the exuberance of that is washing over the city. And now I don't think he's going to be back. But he's been a terrific player. It's one of the interesting things from a business standpoint is this doesn't really help the Eagles in terms of it does a little bit, but not immediately spending in free agency. It will help them more with rookies and maybe later, which will be cheaper. And later almost always means cheaper in terms of signing guys. Because the cap room is not going to come until after the June 1 when free agency is pretty much, at that point you're getting the leftovers in free agency. But I think it's a smart move. One of the things is to remember is that he was banged up a lot this last year. It seemed like every game, either Isaiah Rodgers and sometimes Keely Ringo had to go in there and play some downs. Knowing that and knowing he's 34 years old, 34 years old is really, really old in this game unless you're Jason Peters or Tom Brady. Then you're just hitting your peak. But it's clear Slay doesn't want to play that much longer. So hopefully he moves on and has if he does indeed want to play one more year, has one more great year. It's going to be interesting to see if he gets any Hall of Fame love down the road. He's made 6 Pro Bowls. He's at least in a conversation. You can't just dismiss him as not being. He's 6 Pro Bowls and 1 All Pro, and then like I said, 2 Super Bowls and a winning one. So he's at least going to require the voters to sit down and look and say, hey, you know what? We at least need to talk about this guy.
And you bring up an interesting point about the Hall of Fame stuff, and it makes you think in a couple of years, even when he was with the Lions, and I probably say that 21 season, like the early on in his career, where he wasn't added to the All-Pro list, first team All-Pro, which he was on the borderline of doing a couple times. And that plays a lot in terms of guys getting into the Hall, what have you. And yeah, it makes you wonder now, if he got 2 or 3, he probably would have been a sure thing. Now you got to sit and wait, and you hope he has one more season where he puts up decent numbers and maybe he gets in, because he's had that type of a career where you got to worry, where you can say he's had Hall of Fame worthy play. Now, in terms of,
I just want to make one more quick point about him. The first time I ever really remember watching Slay play was in 2016 when Carson Wentz was a rookie. The Eagles went there on Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure they were 3-0 at the time, and they went to 3-0 and they were coming off a bye, and they went to Detroit, went to Ford Field. It was a terrific game. And Slay ended it with, I think he ended up with, he might have had 2 picks that day, but it was his pick of Carson Wentz. And Carson had played a good game. At that point, a lot of people thought 2016 was going to be 2017 with the Eagles getting off to a great start. I guess he just had the one pick, but it was the pick ended the game. He did a great job of running after. I don't even remember who the receiver was. It might have been Jordan Matthews. I'm not sure, but whoever he was running with did a great job of running with him and just picked the ball off. And that was the end of the game. And Wentz had played a really good game up to that point. Had 2 touchdowns. It was like 25 for 32. So that game will always stick in my mind. And the first time Darius Slay really came on my radar and said, wow, that guy's really good.
and if it was Wentz, he probably was either trying to force it to Jordan Matthews or Zach Ertz, but that's another talk for a whole different day. Now, when we look overall at the defense as a whole is impacted, we know we got the 2 rookies here, but we all know that a defense operates on 3 different levels, and the defensive line being the first, the linebacker second, and the secondary third. How does his absence affect the overall game plan, and how do you think it will change Vic Fangio and how he attacks offenses now?
I think it definitely changes it, because Slay was a guy you were able to leave out there and trust him to cover guys one-on-one. One of the best in the game. I think Pro Football had him rated as like the 8th best in coverage last year. In terms of being a coverage cornerback, and the other 2 guys obviously played a big role. Cooper DeJean and Mitchell played a huge role in the success of that secondary, as did the defensive front 7. It all came together. But to me, it still is the amazing story of the 2024 Eagles, that they could go from the 30th ranked defense, pass defense in the league, 30th ranked defense, to the number 1 defense, and 30, or I think they were 20, maybe they were 26th ranked defense to number 1, but also the 30th ranked pass defense to number 1. But Slay was a huge part of that. And we didn't know if that was going to be the case coming back, because he had the knee injury that required surgery in 2023. Will the Eagles be able to get anybody who's playing at that high a level, no matter who they decide to replace him with? That's a big ask, and probably doubtful.
Yeah, it's tough to disagree with Bob. I think that's where my mind is. As good as Cooper DeJean and Quentin Mitchell are, the secondary would naturally, I think, get a little bit worse without Slay. Overall, I still think it should be a really good secondary, especially with what Quentin Mitchell and DeJean showed you last year. They're going to miss Darius Slay, and they're going to have to figure out who's going to play on the outside. Is it going to be DeJean, or are they going to keep him in the nick, or are they going to keep him in the nickel, and they're going to have to, find a replacement with Darius Slay, whether that's Isaiah Rodgers, potentially, if they want to re-sign him, or Keely Ringo, or someone in the draft. It's not going to be easy, but they have 2 corners in place that they can feel really good about. Most teams in the NFL, can't really say that. It's a tough position to find. They nailed their top 2 picks last year, so it's a good starting place going forward. If they could just find someone that's probably, serviceable to, not a liability, I think overall the secondary is probably going to be fine. It definitely changes how Vic Fangio can play. Darius Slay has proven consistently that he can lock down top wide receivers, and he's done that forever. You can't say that necessarily about Quentin Mitchell yet. It's a 1-year sample size, so it'll be interesting for sure how they go about this. They'll probably have a guy they don't want to pay a lot of money to be that guy. And they're going to have young guys step up, and they're going to have to find that third guy, whether that's in the nickel or the outside. But overall, I do think the secondary will be fine. Keely Ringo, I know it was training camp, but I thought he looked pretty good last year, and he's still a young player. I mean, he is still extremely young, and he's got a lot of room to continue to develop. And Isaiah Rodgers, to me, looked good at times last year. So I think they're going to have some options, and overall, everything will work out, and there'll still be a pretty good secondary.
All right. Now, when I look at this, I look at how you can roll the coverages over to a good receiver. And I look specifically now with what the Washington Commanders did recently in trading for Deebo Samuel. And they had this one thing where, like, at least when you had the one guy with McLaurin, Fangio's been known to in the past, he just have a thing he tag and just say the player's jersey number, 11 cloud or what have you, or whatever variation. They know they roll it over, put the pressure on that side, and you're good. Now you start to question a little bit, who's going to be able, can you have somebody to not only cover a team's number 1, but 1A, similar to what the Eagles offense presents to a defense when they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It's still got some young guys there, or even if you bring a veteran, and we'll get more into the options they can have in a second. But it makes you question a little bit. And then when you have to worry about, then you start to worry about explosive plays downfield, which the Eagles try, which Fangio tries to just limit. That's the main setup of this defense. And then if you don't have the coverage, then you worry about if the pass rush can get home, which there's questions about that, and free agents, what have you. So this is a very important move they're making. Even though a defense is 11 players, it's still one player at a very, very key spot. And I want to see what they do and how they replace Slay and for the future, and if they have any hope of not only winning the division again, but repeating in the Super Bowl. And you look at these options that they have, and we'll get now into our run pass option segment of the show. There are 3 options. We're going to change it up a little bit as well, too. We're going to do it, in fact, of if these guys agree that this person should be the starting cornerback next season opposite of Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, they'll run with it. If they don't, they'll pass it. Or if they don't think that it's feasible that they will be, they'll pass it as well, too. So we're going to go with 3 names, and we're going to start with the first one and see what these guys would do. Cooper DeJean. Guys, are you running that he should be the starting outside corner, or are you passing that he should remain in the slot?
Well, I'll start this one off. I'm gonna run with it, and with this caveat. I saw the Giants do this 2 years ago, and they weren't doing it with nearly as much talent as the Eagles are. I played Cooper DeJean in the outside, unless I'm in need of a slot cornerback, and then I play him in the slot, and whoever comes on the field as the outside is the third cornerback, really. But I let Cooper still be the slot guy, but when I'm in a position where I want him on the outside, I move him back and forth. I know he can do it, and I do it that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna run with it as well. Similar idea to Bob, where he's a versatile player. When you're in base, which they don't play a ton of, but he's one of your 2 outside guys. And then when you get out of base and you have 3 corners on the field, he can move back in the nickel. Maybe whoever that guy is, we don't know who it's going to be, goes on the outside. But you think when they traded up in the second round, as good as Cooper DeJean has been in the slot, and look, there's an argument for him not moving to the outside because he's already one of the best nickels in football. What he does in run defense is so important as well. And it's tough to find a player in that area of the field who's consistently good in coverage and who can come up and is physical in the run, and he's proven to be both. And why mess it up, if it's working? But at the same time, you would think that Howie Roseman kind of envisioned one day a pairing of Quinton Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So he is, to me, the top internal candidate to replace Darius Slay.
If I had to interject myself, I'm actually passing on that. I'd keep him in a nickel. And the reason why is that so many teams base offenses now are at 11 personnel where they have the 3 wide receivers. And it's so tough to be in the inside. To me, I think it's tougher to play a slot cornerback as it is an outside corner because you have to worry about so many different formations. You like Cade mentioned, the run. And you also have to be in communication with the linebackers, the safeties, and the outside corners and different things. That's a really tough thing. For DeJean to do that and play as well as he did as a rookie, yeah, I give him a lot of credit because you sort of have to grow into that position. So personally, I'm leaving him in the slot. And I know maybe we say
but are you taking him off the field when? Are you taking him off the field in a base? I mean,
no.
That becomes the question.
See, for me, I look at it when you look at the way, like, unless you're playing like the Ravens, which you don't, unless you're playing a very run heavy team, which when you look around the league, even if you look at division right now, I don't think Brian Schottenheimer to the Cowboys are going to be a run heavy one. You look at the Commanders, we know Cliff Kingsbury, even though they like to do the spread, they do run outside the spread and they have like 3 or 4 wide receivers. And then you look at the Giants, which I'm sorry, it's Dable. I'm not afraid of that one in their run game. So no. And then you look at the other teams that they have on the schedule, even the tough ones. The only team that I would think you would have to worry about that would be the Lions. And even then, I think you could play a subset of like a big nickel where you put them at the quote unquote linebacker, or you go and you bring in another safety to help you out with that. Or if you go the big guys, I take them off the field and bring in like another linebacker, what have you, if it's a known run thing. So I feel comfortable with doing that. That's where I go on that. Am I crazy?
Yeah, I want him on the field. I want him on the field 100% of the time. And he wasn't all the time last year. It was a lot. I mean, most of the time he was on the field. And your point is well taken. You're basically in that defense more than any other, for sure. Well, a lot more than any other. I mean, there's some games where, like Washington, the first game last year, was on the field for 97% of snaps, all but like one snap. But they were like Baltimore, which we remember. He had the game, the hit of the game that made everybody go crazy on the sidelines, Derrick Henry. But like that game, he was only on the field for 78% of the snaps. I want him on the field all the time. I just know that. That's how good a player he is.
Good discussion. The next player in the runner pass, Isaiah Rodgers. Now he's a free agent. Are you running to sign him and have him be your outside corner? Are you passing with maybe you just you resign him but less as a reserve, or you just let him walk?
I'll run with resigning him and letting him compete for that outside job. There is a caveat there. I mean, maybe another team's willing to pay him significant money. I mean, he was a starting quarter in Indy, his final season before the gambling suspension, and he looked pretty good at times this year. And outside of, Charvarius Ward, maybe a trade for Jair Alexander, Carlton Davis, Slay obviously on the market now. There's still going to be other cornerback needy teams. And you can make an argument maybe they will be, interested in Isaiah Rodgers because he's still a young guy. He's obviously been productive when he has played. He's got pretty good, numbers from PFF, and the eye test tells you that, he's looked pretty solid as well, other than a few, moments here and there. But I do think they'll probably be able to get him back. And two, you can see just from like even in social media and from his time talking how much Philadelphia means to him. So if they can get him back, I think it would be smart to get him in the fold because he has played well. And look, as much as I like Keely Ringo and I like Eli Ricks and all the other young guys they have in that room currently as well, and even a guy that maybe they'll end up bringing in, a young guy, those guys aren't as proven as Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, he's been a starter in this league, so I think it would be smart to bring him back. And I think he's reliable, and that's the move that they should probably make within the coming weeks to make sure that you can get a guy like that you could trust, at least as a floor. I mean, I don't know, you definitely going in with him as your starter, but I feel like it's a good floor to have.
I'm gonna run with bringing him back. I mean, to me, one of the greatest strengths and one of the biggest reasons the Eagles just won the Super Bowl is because they were just they had depth. And when Darius Slay wasn't able to be on the field, when Slay wasn't on the field, the fact that Isaiah Rodgers or Keely Ringo could come into that game and give them a high level of play was so vital. And, it's true at other positions too, true at the linebacker position with Oren Burks, true defensive line. They had 4 guys they could rotate in and out. Even edge with J.Alex Hunt coming on. Depth was such an important part to this team. And I think, Cayden made some good points about that. Yeah, Philadelphia became a place for Isaiah Rodgers to come and get his career back together. I still don't think he's going to command that big a salary. And the Eagles have some salary cap constraints. So, while they might lose a Milton Williams or one of those other guys, Mekhi Becton, Rodgers is a depth piece that they can keep, and they should want to keep. And I also like the idea of, him being there and competing with Keely Ringo. I mean, that was the competition is also part of that depth. When you don't have a job and you're competing for a job, it makes you. What do they say about hungry dogs?
Are we allowed to? Is it trademarked yet?
I don't think so. So, I mean, I like that situation.
Oh, okay. Here we go. And finally, the last one. He was a former 4th round pick. The Eagles traded up to get this guy and have him on there. He's been on the team for a couple of years now. Keely Ringo. Are you guys running with him to let him compete, or you see him as a starter next season, or are you passing and just letting him remain in his current role right now?
I'll go first. I'm going to run with him showing up in camp needing to win a job, and I think Keely Ringo played a lot better than people realize. One of the interesting things, I go back to Vic Fangio saying, and he was talking more about linebackers, but Ringo is more of a linebacker type corner in that he's really good at coming up and giving run support. I'm trying to find his PFF numbers here in terms of run defense. He was maybe the best of the cornerbacks at run support. Let's see here. No, they didn't give him that great a grade on run support. I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that. But I think he's got a chance to be. He was a really good special teams player, and I think he's got a chance to still be a good cornerback. I'm interested to see with him. Do they consider him at all a slot guy? They didn't play him there very much last year because they didn't. Why would they? Because the other guy was so good. But I think the best plan is, it's kind of repeating what we said about Rodgers, but is to, have Keely Ringo come in and compete for a job.
I'm gonna run with the competing as well. I don't know if you can go in next year thinking that he could be a starter. As good as he's been on special teams, he hasn't played a ton of snaps on defense, so it's really tough to tell what type of player he is. Obviously, at this stage of his career, they trusted Isaiah Rodgers more than him, which is to be expected because of Rodgers' experience. But Keely Ringo, it's fascinating because we think back 2 years 2 years ago. I mean, this guy was a projected first-round pick coming into the draft. At least people thought that. Obviously, NFL teams didn't think that. But he's immensely talented. He played on those Georgia's defenses. I mean, he's height, size, speed. I mean, he has all the physical traits that you want from a corner. So you think with his age, now that he's got 2 years, in this system, it could be a strong possibility. I mean, he's 22 years old. I mean, he's younger than some cornerbacks that are in this draft class who are considered top end prospects in this class. So I imagine if the Eagles like him and they've been happy with his development, they'll give him a shot. I don't know if you let him go in there as the clear-cut starter because of the lack of experience. And two, there were concerns about him coming out with the, how fluid are his hips, things along those lines. And I feel like he hasn't really been tested in the NFL too much. He's just there's so much unknown with Kelee Ringo, even though you feel like there's something there to bring in no competition. But I think it's worth giving him a shot.
And now here's another thing too. I know we talked about a lot of guys who were on the roster last year. The Eagles do, in the draft coming up, the Eagles do have the 32nd pick. And in our last show, we discussed, 32nd, if they were, say, around there or not. They also have that, they have the first round pick, and they also pick 64th overall in the second round. Do you think this is a time now where they can go and draft a cornerback to address that position? Or do you think they should address some of those other needs and just worry about one of the guys they have already on the roster?
I'll start out with this. I'll pass, but I don't think necessarily it will be an easy decision. I think in this class, more than likely, at 32 and 64, there will still be some really good defensive linemen, some interior, really strong in both groups, especially the interior D-line. More than likely, it seems like the Eagles are probably going to lose Josh Sweat and probably going to lose Milton Williams, who are going to cash out in free agency. And they're going to have to find, more guys in that area. And with the draft class, the way it's stacking up, I think it's a perfect opportunity to double up in the first two rounds. But if, if there's a strong D-line run in the first round, there's a chance, all the top, edge rushers, are off the board, and it leaves you with guys at the end of the first round that, might have second round grades and you don't want to reach, and all the interior guys run off the board. Maybe even a guy like Derek Harmon's off the board, and you're kind of left there picking between second round edge rushers. And if a guy like Savon Revel from ECU, who probably could have been a top 15 pick in this draft if he didn't tear his ACL back in September with ECU, even though he's going to be ready for training camp, there is that injury concern. But if it wasn't for the injury concern, he'd probably be a top 15 pick. He weighed in at the combine. He was 6'1", 194. His arm length of 32 inches is in the 87th percentile. He has all the physical traits. He played in his own system at ECU. He has a pretty good ball production. I had 2 picks, one against App State and Old Dominion this year before he even got injured. He's a really good player, and you can argue he would have been top half of the first round type player. So if he falls there and the Eagles believe in best player available, it could be a possibility. Maybe in the second round, a guy like Benjamin Morrison falls as well, and he's got the hip injury, and he's been out since October. So there's a chance those guys come available, and they're too tough to pass up. But because of the investment already in the corner position, and because of the strengths in the D-line class, and more than likely a guy falling that has, some upside there, I think they probably skip on corner in the first 2 rounds. I think it'd be smart though. Maybe pass round. I see it more likely on, third round, day 3, they add a nickel corner, maybe like an Upton Stout from Western Kentucky, or a Jacob Parrish from Kansas State, like more of these like shorter slot type corners. That's the route I could see them going down. But I wouldn't count out corner because of that BPA possibility, but because of the D-line strength and the resources they spent last year, I'll pass.
You may have just triggered a few people with the injuries and the Sidney Jones situation that happened here. People just like, there's like heart palpitations and stuff going on with that. But no, those are good names. Bob, what do you think? Do you think they should take a corner in the first 2 rounds of this draft?
The Eagles taking a corner in the first round? That's crazy. But no, that was I'm sorry. And worrying about a guy's injury. Wait, that Cooper DeJean guy came in. He was injured. He couldn't even. He wasn't even around the start of training camp. How could you pick a cornerback and then a guy that's injured? Because you never know. Yeah, well, how he showed us last year that you can draft a cornerback in the first round and he can go on the field and play really good. And if you're really smart, you draft another one in the second round. You move up and you get another one in the second round, and then you're Super Bowl champions. It's easy. Those names that Morrison from Notre Dame and Revel, those are guys that are, projected to go right around that 32nd pick. And given that, Slay's not going to be here anymore, hey, you could definitely see it happen. They obviously had great success with that. The Eagles do have, reinforcements along the edge and the interior. You know, Moro Jomo was a terrific player for them this year, and they're going to expect more out of him. I kind of touched on that in my story this morning. And then, you got Jalex Hunter came on strong after Brandon Graham went down. So they might feel better in those positions than they do a cornerback. So it's definitely not out of the question that they take one in the first round, and certainly not out of the question that they take a cornerback in the first or second round. I don't think they're going to take cornerbacks in the first and second round like they did a year ago, though.
Finally, we're going to come to our final segment. Thank you guys very much for listening. It's the 2-minute drill. Well, we're going to talk about this final questions, and if they are able to answer the question within 2 minutes, you'll hear nothing. If they do not answer the question within 2 minutes, you'll hear this whistle. And yeah, we'll shame them. Now, I'm going to play a clip right now from the Detroit Lions wide receiver Amon St. Brown, where Darius Slay actually appeared after the Super Bowl talking about his future, about a potential reunion with the Lions or staying with the Eagles, knowing that this situation where he could be released coming up. Here's what Slay had to say.
So it sounds like you don't mind coming back.
I knew he was going to try to recruit you. I knew it.
This is what it sounded like. City, like, he did so much for it. Like, last year, you already won the Super Bowl. Come back.
You already won it, man. Oh, man, I love it. But, you know what I'm saying? If it is, it is. If it ain't, it ain't. But right. For sure, the two spots I would love to always be at is either Philly or Philly or the main two. The main ones I'd love to be at, though.
And once again, that was from the Amon St. Brown podcast. We did have to edit it for words because you got to keep it clean here. It's now maybe on No-Huddle Show After Dark or No-Huddle Show Live or whatever. Maybe we play the whole thing, but yeah, we can't say some of those words they can't play some of these words on here. But the main question we're going to ask, Bob, we're going to start with you. Where will Darius Slay play at next year? Your time starts now.
Yeah, well, before you played that clip, the Lions would certainly be on my list. I can remember having a conversation with Slay. It might have been before the playoffs started, or after the first round, when it certainly looked like the Eagles-Lions NFC Championship game was a fait accompli, which it ended up not being. The Commanders ruined that. But he was very excited about the idea of playing in Detroit. And he's not just saying that because he's on the St. Brown podcast. He's very sincere. He had special times in Detroit. He came of age as a star cornerback there. And he, let's face it, he was probably a better player there. Even though he's very good for the Eagles, he was probably, in his prime during those Detroit years. So I'm sure he does have fond memories of there. One of the things he's going to want is to play for a contending team. He's not going to the Giants or Jets. Let's put it that way. And he's not going to any team that doesn't have a chance to win a Super Bowl if this is indeed his last year. So it would be a cool story if he went back to Detroit. It'd be an even cooler story if he went back to Detroit and in 2025, the Eagles and Lions did actually play in the NFC Championship game or a playoff game. So I could see that happening. I don't know where else would have interest. I mean, he does, if he's going to command a lot of money, it's going to be the number and wanting to win. That's two tough asks. So he's probably going to have to take less money than he might want if he absolutely wants to win. Maybe the Ravens also strike me as the type of team where Slay would flourish because there's so many good veterans.
I apologize. You just missed it. You ran over time. You were so close.
Ravens point out of there.
Yeah. So close. All right, Cayden, you're up now. 2 minutes to go to make your point. And the question is, where will Darius Slay play at next season? Your time starts now.
Detroit feels like the natural fit, and I get all the arguments for why. They needed an upgrade at corner, especially if they let Carlton Davis go in free agency. And if they were to do that, The only really other guy they have on the outside there is Terrion Arnold, who did not have as good of a rookie season as Quinton Mitchell, had some problems, wasn't as consistent. Maybe Darius Slay would be a really good mentor. Bob mentioned the contending factor. All those make Detroit a logical fit, and I think it's a really strong possibility. But if I had to go outside of Detroit, and I will, I think the other team that makes a ton of sense for me, and I know this hasn't been reported or anything, but if you look at the other team that could be competing for that spot behind Philadelphia as the next best team in the NFC next year, is the Rams. And they have a lot of pieces on offense. There's some really good pieces on that defensive line. They have everything in the making with Matthew Stafford coming back and having Sean McVay in place to be a Super Bowl contender next year, except for the secondary is kind of weak. The cornerback position is not very strong. Here's the names: Darius Williams, Josh Wallace, Darion Kendrick, Trey Thompson, Emmanuel Forbes, and Kobe Durant. Those are the guys currently under contract. None of those guys scream CB1. It's not a great cornerback room. It could be their downfall next season. They have over $44 million in cap space. They have room to make a deal like this. They brought Stafford back for a reason. They think they can still compete for a Super Bowl. Why not bring in Darius Slay? Why not bring him in to knock off the Lions and the Eagles? And I think the Rams would be a good fit for Darius Slay.
23 seconds. You win. Congratulations. Well, you win this round. Bob, we'll look to see a better bounce back performance.
You never declared me a winner once all year, even when he went over. Now you're declaring him a winner?
Bob, you both are always winners in my eyes.
The officiating sucks in this league.
What, you're going to get a sky judge now? You're going to expand everything? Everything's under review now?
Check the replay. I was at 159.
Or we'll do like baseball. You tap your head and we look. Oh, well, sorry. Nah, you're over 2 minutes. Sorry. We apologize. Now, I'm going to add something on to this as well, too. And I was talking to a few people. I've talked to a few people about this across the season and dating back to November. And when I was speaking to somebody, they said that they really thought that they weren't necessarily too worried if he were to be released because they thought there would still be a market and they still thought the Eagles would still be in it. Then you see Jordan Schultz's report, Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports report, which I can also confirm as well, too, speaking to somebody, that the Eagles are open to potentially bringing him back. And this it's not the first time that we've seen something like this where the Eagles have released somebody and the next thing they come back on a different number. And the key is look at June 1st. Now, a lot of teams who have significant needs and then want the top players at certain things, sure, they could save some money aside, but a lot of times they spend all that in March, in the first couple days of free agency, which is coming up very soon. So now that you don't have as much money to spend, it starts to come to fit. And with it being a June 1st designation, that gives Slay some time to see the landscape of the rest of the league, where everybody's going, what have you, and you just go from there. I don't think the Eagles are, and I say this as well too, I don't think the Eagles are completely out of it. I think there's still a shot he goes there. I think definitely you mentioned, and I like as well too, with the Ravens, the Ravens could be one. The Titans, I don't think I'm going there unless they overpay, but Denard Wilson's down there and he's really close with Denard Wilson. The Rams make sense because he and Matthew Stafford. Another team that I can sincerely see, they don't have a lot of cap money now, but they're going to be able to create some. They have $4 million right now, but they can create some. Are the Houston Texans, because Jeff Odoka's a free agent. They have Derek Stingley. You're thinking, why do they need another cornerback? Well, you see, Slay can still play. Still be like a CB2 or CB1A, 1B as well too. You add him there, and also he spends a lot of time in the Houston area right now. So that's another team I think you could look at and potentially see as a landing spot. But there's still a lot of time to go there. What those numbers look like, who knows? Could we see? I don't know. Could we see 10 million? Perhaps. But like you mentioned, contenders are going to be important. Ability, a team that's looking to mentor some young guys. I mean, heck, I wouldn't be surprised the Patriots try to throw something like getting a veteran, because they're going to have a lot of cap space and they need to turn things around, and they can potentially add some people. They have Christian Gonzalez already, but to have a guy who's been around the league for a while and to help those younger guys, yeah, it's definitely possible. So it'll be interesting to see. We may not have a resolution for this for a while, but we'll watch it and monitor it, and we'll have everything on NJ.com/Eagles. We'll continue to cover Darius Slay, whatever other moves that are coming down the line, and there will be other moves, players, potentially James Bradbury, some other guys who will be the Eagles may move on from ASAP to free up some more cap space to make some moves heading into free agency and draft potential trades as well too. So make sure to read Bob Brookover, Cayden Steele, my stuff as well too. We'll be able to have that. So for Bob, for Cayden, I'm Chris Franklin. Everybody have a good one. See ya. The No-Huddle Show podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and Bristol, PA, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. That's PENNCOTECH.edu.